turn out the lights, snuff the candles, Christmas is banished. That was what happened during the reign of Oliver Cromwell, but it didn't come out of nowhere. It came as a consequence of the Reformation and of the changes that led to. It was a surprisingly slow process, and I'm delighted that Professor David Starkey is going to explain to us in detail how this extraordinary change happened, but also why it was undone when Charles II came back to the throne. You've built the groundwork from the 1530s through to the 1640s for a feeling that a long celebration of Christmas isn't godly. If it's not godly, you shouldn't do it. You should be much more serious about it. And then Cromwell comes along and he formally bans Christmas Day. Parliament sits on Christmas Day. When I was leader of the House and we were trying to get Brexit done, I would tease people by saying, well, we would have to do what Cromwell did and sit on Christmas Day again, as you can imagine.
But of course, it's not just Christmas. It's the Maypole. I mean, the Maypole is one of the principal symbols of a kind of popular rebellion. But remember, they're very sophisticated about it. Again, they are fully aware. They hadn't listened to our first discussion on that, but they are very aware that the early Christianity had incorporated pagan custom. They knew, of course, that Christmas was essentially timed as it was because of midwinter festivals. They knew that the 1st of January was a day of gift giving because the Romans had done it. It continued to have its astrological significance. And all of these things which the early church had shrugged its shoulders about, by the time that you've got into this post-Reformation world, you don't shrug your shoulders about them. You say it's downright wicked. It has its origins in heathenism. We are fighting against heathenism. We are not compromising with it. The whole quality of the Puritan is the refusal to compromise. I remember my dear mother was a typical Northern Puritan, and I was used to say, she used the word principle the whole of the time, and what a principle meant, it was something I felt about so strongly I won't listen to reason on the subject. But these were men and women, we mustn't forget this, of principle, and they thought the behaviour that you were being charming and sweet and languorously sympathetic towards, they thought it was wicked, and it was also, again, it was self-improvement. It was associated with drunkenness, with licence, the things that actually destroy respectability, that destroy your ability to achieve economic self-sufficiency, prosperity, and so on.
And you were part of the elect. And if you were part of the elect, you had to behave yourself because although it didn't change your chance of salvation, you needed to prove to yourself you were worthy of salvation.
Yes, and even more, moreover, again, it's very, very similar to woke now. You think everybody else, because you know, of course, that your principles are the right principles, that there are no other principles. Everybody else, even those who are wicked, must be compelled to behave. So the machinery of compulsion, and it's very important we understand this, the pressure at parish level, and remember, the better off have a very, very powerful hold on the less well off. They control the poor law. They control the, as it were, day-to-day administration of magistracy and so on. The public humiliation of those who have been guilty of adultery or having a child out of wedlock, the parading in your shirt. Well, that means you're pretty well naked. It's very difficult for us to comprehend this, particularly the modern Church of England. With loving, caring, whatever. It's social discipline.
You've got your Puritan Revolution, you've got Cromwell in charge, you've had a build-up of 100 years that allows you to ban Christmas.
And you've control of legislation and force and the machinery of the state.
You have taken dictatorial powers, you've expelled MPs you don't like from Parliament, you've been much less of a Democrat.
Parliament. Remember, the first thing that Cromwell does after cutting off the head of the king is to abolish Parliament. One forgets this, and you are never able to reconstruct any form of working polity from that point onwards.
And you try, and then you have Pride's Pole purge and all of these things going on, and you think that Christmas is evil because of its origins and because people get drunk and enjoy themselves in a way that is ungodly, so you ban it. But people don't take any notice.
Oh yes, they do. I mean, there is immense social pressure. I mean, what we forget, we had a period of military government. Cromwell was a military dictatorship. There were the major generals, and things are enforced, and they're enforced brutally. There is resistance, but there is brutal enforcement.
All the maypoles
are cut down. Organs are ripped. I mean, again, we forget the sheer destructiveness.
The vandalism. But you can still see it of some of the great cathedrals.
Well, you can see it particularly at Ely. But again, musical instruments. The Civil War is a war of organs. Again, in the early 17th century, as part of the reaction against Puritanism, which is such a strong feature of the first years of Charles I's reign, Archbishop Laud believes in, again, we haven't talked about the beauty of holiness, the idea of ceremony, the idea of religion is essentially sensuous, of sacramental. In other words, that these are meanings too deep for words that are to be expressed by symbolic action. And clearly, if you actually believe in the sacrament, it goes beyond the merely symbolic into actual change and so on. All of that's there. And then, so you're putting back the organ, you're putting back the altar, you're sometimes even crucifixes, you're certainly putting the communion table to the east end of the church, you're railing it round, you are putting candles and candlesticks and all the rest. It's a period of astonishingly sharp changes. The early 18th century, things calm down. And those passions on either side diminish. There is an increased belief in rationality, in good sense. So everything gets rather flat. The passions die and the traditions die because, of course, the pressures for social conformity, the pressures for improvement, the pressures for a moralizing society do very strongly continue.
But this is in its way very satisfactory. You have the medieval Christmas, you have a long interregnum, and then you have a restoration which we, to some extent, enjoy. And we need that restoration in our Constitution as well as in our Christmas. Professor David Starkey, thank you very much indeed.
And a Merry Christmas.
And a Merry Christmas, one and all.